And in this country since 1994, we've been building commercial real estate space. That's office buildings, everything except for manufacturing. You know, it's service areas, it's mall space, all of this stuff has been being built at 5 times the rate of the population growth, including illegal aliens or undocumented workers. And in fact, a huge number, a very significant sector of the undocumented workers were working within the commercial real estate market. Now that whole thing is going to collapse. We're going to go into what we'd forecast years ago as the demolition Dana phase, where young people will be employed to destroy all of these overbuilt commercial properties and try and salvage what materials they can. But there are other ripples to this. There's going to be a massive level of unemployment with anybody that's ever been connected with any kind of commercial real estate building, and it'll put pressure on the populations, including the illegal immigration population, which will increase crime rates, which will increase all kinds of problems at that end. And so it feeds into the social chaos that is going to be the boiling pot from which our active revolution emerges next year. And it's going to be quite chaotic because it's not going to be, as everyone might imagine from our far distant view now. If we look back at the American Revolution, we all think of it as kind of like monocultural. But there were competing groups within the whole of the 13 colonies at the time. Various groups from slave owners to, industrialists to shippers to farmers. Everybody had their own little agenda. Now it's going to get hugely complex because this time the revolution is going to have many more agendas that all have to be melded together in an effective compromise as we go forward. And it's, like I say, frothy chaos, I think, is going to be a good way to describe next year from early January on until about the 7th or 8th of July. And then we're going to start seeing the froth die down, and from the chaos, maybe a couple of dozen enduring memes will persist and move forward. And that actually I'm looking forward to it because it'll be kind of like a vacation. I won't have to sift so much. It'll be fairly easy at that point. We'll throw away all of the little crud, breakfast cereals. Oh no, don't worry about it. We're not even manufacturing them anymore, so you don't even have to think about that. That kind of thing.
Yes.
And it may be, by the way, we are picking up some strange stuff. We're picking up, for instance, in our data, which I really didn't go into it, but at least in the populous U.S. of A. Everybody in the populace is going to start getting a lot healthier as of July 7th of next year because such strange things as aspartame and high fructose corn syrup won't be manufactured anymore, and they won't be part of the diet, so we won't have to worry about them. It won't happen overnight, but it'll start fading from the 7th onward as conditions get much worse. We just won't be able to devote the time to such strange things, empty calories and non-productive manufacturing.
How does that tie in with crop failures?
Well, again, that's part of it. The corn crops, except for areas in the far southwest and into Mexico, will be under some very severe pressure in 2010 due to the climatic conditions, but also economic conditions, fertilizer, etc. So, and fertilizer is a complex issue because a lot of the fertilizer is actually extracted from energy. That is, they actually extract chemicals from natural gas, burn the natural gas, and then use the chemicals for fertilizer. And it's one of those things where we're just going to basically have to stop simply because of the cost. It'll just be far too expensive to make fertilizers that way. And what we have here is really a situation where I was probably one of in a generation that was the last or a bridge generation between the way that things used to be and the way that things are now, especially in like things with fertilizers. So in my youth, I lived in countries where they couldn't afford commercial chemical fertilizers. And there were honey pots that collected human waste, composted them effectively, it was tested, and it was put on the fields, and it worked. And then eventually, the cost on the chemicals became so cheap, no one bothered to do any of that rather yucky kind of work anymore, but was very effective in what we would now think of as self-sustaining. And we just dropped all of that as cost decreased. Well, in the U.S., we're going to go back to it simply because we're going to be forced to by the economics. I kid you not, the dollar death will be the ultimate in doom for all of these doom addicts that are, saying, they want everything to change and they want to have it happen now. Whereas what I want is to, be able to get myself in a better position as it is changing. I don't want it to happen all of a sudden. But when the dollar, or as the dollar degrades over this next year, the level of impact on U.S. citizens will not be able to be overstated. No matter how much hyperbole you put into it, you simply won't scratch the surface of it because of the huge level of upside downness that's going to occur. And that is in the sense of we're consuming about 14 or 15 times, used to be 20, but it's reduced, about 14 or 15 times our share of planetary resources as every individual here in the U.S., simply because of the dollar as the global reserve. But it's effectively dead as a global reserve. It just hasn't fallen over quite yet. For instance, you notice that the Iranian oil trading doesn't accept dollars.
Yes.
And Russia won't take dollars for their energy or their gold either. And they're in a real world of hurt because at the moment they want to sell off gold that they've got in some surplus for some specific purposes, and they're afraid to. The reason they're afraid to is because they're afraid China will attempt to buy it with dollars, and it will put them in a very awkward position. They don't want the dollars, basically.
Okay, we'll take a break right now. Cliff is Cliff from halfpasthuman.com on Beyond the Ordinary.
We are Beyond the Ordinary with Cliff right here, and I'm not sure where we're going next, but I do have a couple of little things we observed. Of course, the bad twin bombings in Baghdad on Sunday, and which is the worst violence going on over there, and also in Afghanistan in 4 years. And also we noticed pretty much panic increasing, especially with parents, about the swine flu vaccine. They're just torn about whether to have it or not.
And we have an interesting juxtaposition there because yesterday, or actually Sunday, our time, the Chinese released a survey. 51% of their populace says, nope, they aren't going to take the vaccine. And then we also had stories coming out of Iraq where they're having a panic over the swine flu and they're closing all their schools. So we're seeing both sides of the meme. It's all showing up. And still, even with the large Chinese population involved, it represented about 7.5% or so of the total of the turn was related to the disease issue, and about another 7% was related to warfare, and then the rest was economic. And there was tons of economic news. So, but it did work out that way, yeah. And then there's all kinds of weird things, now it comes out that the United Kingdom has a court, a secret court that no one knows who is on it or how it even works, that goes around and sucks away money from estates that are left untended, so to speak. So if you die intestate without heirs, then your estate, if it sits around long enough, they'll just seize it and do what they want with it. And this was news to the people of Britain. And then we have all different kinds of other stuff coming up relative to that, yeah. But it's a lot of work to try and predict these, and that's why basically we work from pyramids down towards the base, and the closer we get to the base, the larger our margin for error, because our pyramids are not the regular nice cool ones like in Egypt. They're really fat at the base and relatively short because they only have about 5 layers in them. And so in that sense, we can be very accurate with such things as archetypes and say, oh, okay, there's going to be a disaster. And then we go down one level and we say, hey, there's going to be a ship involved. And, because we see all this language relative to transportation, movement, etc. So we know there's a ship involved with this. Then we go down one layer further and we say, oh, look, There's elements of language saying it's going to be a marine, and so in terms of water-based, and so we come out and we say there's going to be a maritime disaster. And we blow it because it was really what it was talking about was at that particular instance that I'm thinking of, was the space shuttle Columbia, which indeed was a ship and was in a disaster and does have language relating it to the maritime. But it gets a little tricky for us because the closer we get to the bottom of the pyramid, the greater the number of choices that are all out there attracting our eye and trying to make our little monkey mind say, this is it, this is it, this is it. And so really I like to only go down so far and just cut it off and say at this point, from here on, we really lose a lot of confidence because it's just our human monkey minds guessing as to which of all these thousands of words might really define the situation that's developing. Whereas we know the 5 words we've already chosen are really accurate, however broad they may be.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Well, this coming year really is tumultuous.